Although you don't come across simple interest very often. It's usually compound interest, so we need to take a look at that. Before we actually look at formulas, I do want to make sure we kind of understand some terms. If I say annually, what does that mean?
Once a year.
Semi-annually? Yeah, twice a year, every 6 months. Quarterly? Right. Monthly? Okay, here's the big one. How many of you know how many days are in a year?
65.
Okay. Alright, so that's the first thing. We'll come across some of those terms. Want to make sure we're all on the same page with those. Compound interest is found using this formula. I will not make you memorize the formula. So if we need it on test or quiz, I will give it to you, but I'm not telling you what the variables stand for. So you should be familiar enough with it that you know that. A is your ending amount. Sometimes that's called the future value. It's what we will have in the future. P is our principal or starting amount. Sometimes that's called present value. It's what you have today. R is our interest rate. It always has to be in decimal form. T is the time in years. And then N is the number of times we compound in a year. The other thing, we talked about, our different terms. Is daily the most often we can calculate interest? No. So compound interest, what it means is, I stop, I calculate interest, add that to the amount. So now the amount's growing constantly, right? So if it were daily, every day you get paid interest, it adds to your amount, so the next day you would earn a little more interest, right? But I could do more often. I could do every hour if I wanted, or every minute if I wanted, or every second if I wanted. And so that leads into what's called continuous compounding. That's the most it could ever be. So if it is continuous, it's A equals PEPRT. It's fewer variables than the one before, but they mean the same thing. A is your future value, the amount we're going to have. P is our present value, what we have right now. R is the interest rate. T is time in years. E is a button on your calculator. So if you're using these graphing calculators, it's like the third button up on the left. There's the LN, and above it in blue is your E. So if we hit second LN, if you're looking at these calculators, it's the second LN as well as the third from the top. Okay, does anyone need help finding E on their calculator? So all we're going to do today is look at problems and see if we can calculate interest. So A, find the future value of $100 invested at 4%, compounded quarterly after a period of 13 quarters. So what I like to do is kind of make a list of things. Future value. Okay, I don't know that. So future value is A. That's what we're trying to find. So what would the 100 be? P, our principal or present value, it's the amount we have right now. 4% rate. And when we do it in the problem, we always change it to decimal form, so 0.04. Compounded quarterly. Quarterly is how often? 4 times a year. So our N is 4. Okay? After a period of 13 quarters. So I'm talking about my compound interest. The only time we use the E formula is if I say 1. So is if I say continuously. So we're using this first formula. The only variable we have left is T, but I told you T has to be measured in what? Years. How would I change 13 quarters into years? Divide by 4. And what's that give me? 0.25 years. now we plug in. I don't know A. B is 100. 1 plus R is 0.04. Divided by N is 4. To the N times T, 4 times 3.25. And my recommendation is just put the entire thing in the calculator at once. I don't try to break it into steps. I just type it all in exactly as written. We are talking money, so I do want you to round to 2 decimal places. So did everybody get 113.81? If you did not, please raise your hand right now so I can help you figure out what you mistyped on your calculator. That way we find the mistake now and you don't continue doing it for every problem. The other thing I asked was how much interest has been earned. How would you find your interest? We started with $100, we ended with this, so it's just your ending amount minus your beginning amount. So we have $13.81 interest. Questions there? Let's try the next one. Find what investing $1,000 at an annual rate of 10% compounded continuously. When I see continuously, what does that tell me? Yeah, you see other equation. Okay, so in this equation we have A, we have P, we have R, and we have T. So find what investing $1,000, what would 1,000 represent? P. An annual rate of 10%, R is 0.1, yield in 3 years, so that's my time. I'm finding what it would yield, so I'm looking for my A here. So A is 1,000 E to the 0.1 times 3 power. So we're just typing this in using the E button. I'm rounding to 2 decimal places because it's money. It was one, yeah. All right, and this one didn't ask me for the amount of interest, so that is my answer. Let's look at the next one. What amount deposited today at 4.8%? So what's the 4.8 represent? The rate. How would I write it? Compounded annually. Which formula am I using? The first one. Annually is how many times per year? One time. So my N is 1. Will give $15,000 in 42 months. So I'm asking what amount deposited today will give me 15,000. So what's the 15,000 represent? The A. So the P is the thing I don't know this time. In 42 months, how would I change that into years? Divide by 12, so 42 over 12 is? Alright, let's plug in. So we have A equals P plus. Okay, we can simplify it a little bit here. 1 plus 0.048 divided by 1. Sorry. I will stop eventually. My eyes are watering. You know when you try not to cough, it gets worse. Okay, then what would we do to find P? Okay, so 15,000 divided by the 1.048 to the 3.5 power. Round to 2 decimal places. And so we get $12,729.95. Your P is always going to be smaller than your A, because it will grow over time. All right, did we get that one? Okay. Try not to die in this problem. What if I don't have that much? What if we only have $10,000 right now? What annual interest rate is necessary for the money to increase to $15,000 in 42 months? So we're still talking about the same formula. What is the 10,000? Okay, I'm trying to find my interest rate. I don't know that one. I did not specify that. Let's assume it's the same as above. Still compounding annually, so just one time a year. My T is still the 42 months, which we said was 3.5 years. I still want to get 15,000, so my A is the same. So the only thing that changed is now I'm looking for the interest rate. So we plug in. How could I get rid of this 10,000? It's multiplied, so we have to divide it. So 15,000 divided by 10,000. 1 plus R divided by 1 is R. 1 times 3.5 is 3.5. how am I going to solve this for r? Yeah, we have to get rid of the exponent. So the opposite of an exponent is to do a radical. I'm not going to put it in the calculator yet, it's not going to be pretty. But I'm just trying to get to my r, so then what would we have to do? Just subtract our 1. So I'll type that in. So I have the 3.5 root of 1.5 with a minus 1 on the end. You guys get 0.1228. So you could leave it like that. You could tell me that means 12.28%. Typically those rates are given in percentage form. So we can solve for different pieces of the formula. Doing okay so far? Let's look at this one. Find the present value. What's present value? So find the present value. This should say of $100. So what's my 100? Okay. After 2 years, so T is 2, at 6%, so R is 0.06. Compounded monthly, so N is 12. So 100 equals P 1 plus R over N, so 0.06 divided by 12 to the N times T, so 12 times 2. Okay, you can simplify as much as you want. It's also okay, could you just go ahead and divide that whole thing over if you wanted right now? You can. You have a calculator, it's not a big deal. If you simplify it first, 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12, 1.005. 12 times 2 is the 24th power, so to get P, we are just dividing 100 by that. So our P, the present value, turns out to be what? $3.72. It's how much you would have today in order to get $100 in 2 years under those circumstances. Any questions there? 2 more. What annual rate of interest? So I am looking for my R. Compounded annually, so that tells me what? And it's just the 1 time a year. Should you seek if you want to double your investment in 5 years? So did I tell you A or P? No. There's a couple ways you could do it. You could keep it in terms of variables. What I found people prefer is just to make up a number. Okay? We don't know how much we have today. How much do you want to pretend we have? What did you say? $1,000. Okay. If I want to double it, how much will I end with? 2,000. So plug that in. 2,000 equals 1,000. Plus R over
No,
1.
that's rancid, bro.
And my time is 5 years. So we can divide over the 1,000, which will give us a 2. R divided by 1 is R. 1 times 5 is 5. How do I get rid of the fifth power? So we have the root of 2 minus 1. So 14.87%. I want you guys to try the next one on your own. Remember, anytime it says continuously, that's when you use the second formula. We want the amount in the account later on, so we don't know A. 2,000 is our B. Rate would be 0.085, and our time 2.25 years. So we would do
2.25.
A equals 2,000 E to the 0.085 times 2.25. Plug that in. And we should get an ending amount of $2,421.52. Are we having any issues with this? Okay. There is a handout posted on Google Classroom. You guys have the rest of the hour to work on that.